Ladies and gentlemen, we're back from our break. Thank you for staying with us on the other end. If you have just joined us, a very big welcome. The topic for discussion this evening is the upcoming general election. And just before we went on break, I was talking to our guest about the suspension of the Parliament, whether it was lawful or unlawful. And I know that from the Supreme Court's ruling, it was deemed to be unlawful. The Parliament is back again in action, and we hope that they will be in a position to debate this very critical issue about Brexit, and whatever the decision that they make will be one that will be anonymous and one that will be beneficial to Great Britain's future. Just before we went on break, I was talking to Afzal Said Munna, and you were trying to make your final point. Do you want to do that now?
Yeah, please. Thank you very much for giving me that opportunity. Yes, I was trying to say that how the provocations actually happened from the beginning. So I was watching Sadiq Javid's speech today for the Conservative Conference, and I was wondering that, seeing that message, the massive message they're delivering, that they deliver the Brexit. So that means it's pre-planned. So if we looked into the durations, like why our Prime Ministers wanted to have a 5 to 6 weeks of suspensions on the parliaments, and Queen's speech on 14th, 17th, he is going to join Brussels for the EU conferences, and 31st of October deliver the no-deal Brexit. Now, this is a pre-planned timeline that we not going to get any opportunity to have heavy-handed questions and deliver that to the Boris Johnson.
Let me put this to you. Had it not been for the Supreme Court's ruling, the Parliament wouldn't have had the opportunity to discuss this had this suspension went along with what Mr. Johnson did. Is that correct?
Well, the Parliament, what I was trying to say from the beginning as well, the Supreme Court didn't made the decisions whether it is unlawful or lawful based on any other distinctions. Supreme Court's decision was purely based on the duration. On the duration.
Right.
So if Boris Johnson went for 2 weeks, there was no issue.
We have a caller. Let's just take the call and we will continue. Hello, caller. Good evening and Assalamu alaikum.
Hello, Assalamu alaikum, bhai sahab.
Assalamu alaikum, ji bhaiya. Who's calling?
Bhai sahab, আমি বার্মিংহাম থেকে সুমন ভাই यार
জি you calling from Birmingham, আপনার নামটা কি হলো?
প্রথম আপনারে অভিনন্দন জানাই यार
জি
আর এখানে যারা আইফোন স্টুডিও সবাইরে আমি আন্তরিক অভিনন্দন জানাই यार
থ্যাংক ইউ ভাইয়া আপনার নামটা কইবানি
আমার নাম সুমন ভাই আর বার্মিংহাম থাকি
সুমন ওকে ভাইয়া কোকাসেন আপনার প্রশ্নটা কি দেবা
কংগ্রাচুলেশন সবরে আর আন্তরিকভাবে সবাইরে আমি অভিনন্দন জানাই यार এবং রুহুল আমিন ভাইরে
জি বিশেষ
করে রুহুল আমিন ভাইরে আর আপনারা যারা আছেন সবরে সবচেয়ে বড় কথা হইল যে রুহুল আমিন ভাইয়ের মতো মানুষ আর আপনারা যারা এখানে আছেন আপনারা থাকার কারণে আজকে আমরা বাঙালি কমিউনিটি অনেক উপকারও আর ইনশাআল্লাহ ভবিষ্যতে যেন আপনারা আল্লাহ থাকবা আমরা বাঙালি কমিউনিটির জন্য আর সবাইকে ধন্যবাদ জানাই আর বিশেষ করে রুহুল আমিন ভাইয়ের ধন্যবাদ জানাই আর দরুসুল্লাহ ভাই আপনারও ধন্যবাদ জানাই আর
থ্যাংক ইউ ভাই আপনি বার্মিংহাম থেকে কল করার লাগি রুহুল আমিন ভাই আপনার সব কথাগুলো শুনছেন রুহুল আমিন ভাই one of your
ধন্যবাদ সুমন
সাপোর্টার
কল করার লাগি থ্যাংক ইউ
Okay, Shumon Bhai, thank you. Right, so we will go back to Munna Bhai to conclude what you were saying.
Yeah, I mean that was the main decisions. That the decision was on the durations. So if Boris Johnson went for 2 weeks, there was no issues. That Gina Miller will step in.
But it was just the duration.
Yeah, it was just the duration.
Okay, now you've mentioned at the beginning that what Sajid Javed had said. I think one of the question that was put to him at the conference was about the recent headlines concerning Mr. Boris Johnson and a model or an entrepreneur, a business entrepreneur from America about their relationship. And he did not want to comment about someone's personal relationship. But don't you think, where it involves the Prime Minister, that the public have the right to know exactly what their relationship is, and the grant that was made to this individual when Boris Johnson was the mayor of London?
First of all, I mean, the thing is that it's pretty personal for him. Where he do not wanted to make a comment about it, I think I should not make a comment about his personal life as well, that whom he is going to be with, who is going to be his friends, or so on.
Okay.
So far, I know she is a very good friend of him, and obviously, when you are in a power, when you have the capacity to help somebody in various ways, you will be doing that. So probably that could be one of the gesture from him as a friend, Boris, not as a as somebody else. That is my understanding. But to be very fair with you, if that it deals with that funding that comes from the taxpayers' money in United Kingdom, then definitely Boris Johnson has to be put under
He should
the
be held accountable.
and then
yes.
held accountable.
Sure.
At least we as a citizen should know that where from this money came and why it was given.
Given to her, right. Okay, fair enough. Let me put this question perhaps to Ruhul Amin Bhai. At this conference, Sajid Javed also made a number of promises, and in particular, he wants to give billions for the roads and the infrastructure, promises that he is making. Do you think that the Tories will win the next general election and will be able to deliver the promises that are being made, especially in terms of the amount of money that are being promised? Where is it going to all come from?
25 billion, by the way.
Yeah.
Thank you for the question, Dorosbhai. Personally, I think obviously knowing the Tories and what they've done previously, since they've been in power from 2010, they've never really kept their promises. I honestly believe that they will not actually invest that money. Look at the police numbers. They took away something like 200,000 police.
Sorry,
and they gave
I'm not
back
trying to cut you short, but do you think they'll be able to deliver or not?
I don't think so.
Thank you. Let me go to Josh. Josh, what is your opinion on this? Do you think they'd be able to deliver, or is it just empty promises that they're making, which if they win the general election, they'll say, we are not in power, and whoever gets in, they'll probably make them bankrupt anyway, because they won't have the money to be able to deliver. What do you think?
Well, several things. Number one, I don't think we can trust a word that Boris Johnson says, right?
Well, it wasn't Boris Johnson, it was Sajid Javed who had said this.
Boris Johnson's
and his government,
in which Sajid Javid serves, and I'll tell you why. Time after time, we've had lie after lie from Boris Johnson and his colleagues, whether it was during the referendum campaign with all this 350 million on the bus, whether it is in his decision to prorogue Parliament. It's been proved that he can lie to the Queen. If he's going to lie to the Queen, then...
So, in your opinion, he's a liar and he cannot be trusted?
I don't think that we can trust what he says.
Thank you.
Let
me put this to Momshan. That's his party.
I want to come to the question on Boris Johnson's private life.
I will let you... All right, go on, very quickly, make that. Go on.
I don't think that politicians' private lives should be all over the newspapers necessarily.
Right.
I don't think that's appropriate.
But if they're a public figure, they have to behave themselves in a rational manner. That is the minimum expectation.
Well, let's talk about this very specific case briefly.
Okay.
Boris Johnson declared some time ago that he had no interest to declare in the awarding of this grant to the lady in question.
Right.
If, though, it has transpired that there was some kind of relationship that was taking place between them, clearly Boris Johnson has more than just no interest.
It's in the public knowledge today that the lady in question had told her friends that she was having a sexual relationship with the Prime Minister, and those people are talking to the press. That's what I read this morning in the Daily Mail.
But my point is, if it were the case that such a relationship were to be taking place at the same time as the lady in question received a grant from Boris Johnson, then of course it's in the public interest to investigate this.
Thank you. Boris Johnson cannot be trusted.
He's
a liar.
This is
what is your opinion on this?
Classic character assassination.
Okay.
When they realize that the man is riding high in public opinion, and this is backed up by various polls that's
misleading the Queen
taking place. Now, on the question of misleading the Queen and prorogation, as you know, Dorosbhai, we in this country do not have a written constitution.
No,
so the rules are not written in black and white. With the act of prorogation, the Prime Minister wanted to test the remit of
you
the
don't
law.
test the law by
No,
breaking the law.
let me just articulate. I think it's absolutely important. Because there was no clear guidance forthcoming, the Prime Minister decided to test the boundary of the law.
He decided to break
and on the advice
law.
of the Attorney General, who is the government's legal advisor,
A politician.
he went to prorogate Parliament. Now, of course,
Is that
we
Mr.
have
Bounce, is it Mr. Bounce or who's Boris Johnson's
Jeffrey
advisor?
Cox. Jeffrey Cox, who is the Attorney General.
Yeah, okay.
So obviously, on his advice, he prorogued Parliament, and we know the whole story, which had unfolded afterwards. No, let me make that point. Let me make that point.
Hang on, gentlemen. There is a caller on the line. Let's just take the call. Hello, caller. Good evening. Assalamu alaikum.
Can you translate for me?
Hello, caller.
Sure, I'll try it.
Hello, caller. Right, seems like there's a technical problem. Caller, please do call back again, and we will take your call. Thank you. Sorry.
So as I was saying, we have various checks and balances in place. The judiciary is independent of the legislative. The legislative is independent of the executive. And those checks and balances came into force, and the Supreme Court ruled that the duration of the prorogation was not fit for purpose, right? So I don't think the Prime Minister went in with the intention to actually use prorogation as a way of circumventing Parliament.
It's
the reason why he didn't know.
There was a loophole which the Prime Minister wanted to use that to his advantage.
that is something being sort of peddled into the public domain by certain
but he was not. He as a Prime Minister was not advised by an LCT. He was advised by an Attorney General who is practicing law and plus a politician. He knew what is lawful and what is unlawful. He knew his colleagues as well. By
again, we don't have a
letting
written
us
constitution.
down
The constitution
in terms of Brexit
doesn't
and
say.
also going to the Queen. That's I don't
but
know
the
what that is
constitution
going to
doesn't
lead
say
in a
you
sense
have
of.
to prorogue Parliament by 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks.
Yeah, but you haven't made
so
the
there is
intention.
no
was no set time.
Exactly.
Limit
It is
which says
open-ended.
you could
It is open-ended and
prorogue the Parliament for
open
X
to your
amount
own
of time.
interpretation. And the Prime Minister decided to take a view, which was, of course.
You want to come in, Rahul bhai?
Yeah,
Right.
I just wanted to ask Munshad bhai, never in the history of British policy we've had such a long prorogation, you see. So naturally people wonder, why is he doing this?
Can I come back to this? Can I come back to this?
One at a time.
The debate taking place in the Parliament.
Sure. Go on.
I think it's a perfectly valid question. We never in this country or in this country's history had a political party in opposition which is at complete odds with the electorate. 17.5 million people voted to take this country out of the European. What is your leader's position? The position is we want to remain in the European Union with inside the single market. We want to remain in the European Union with customs union. That is not Brexit. That is not even Brexit. That is not Brexit at all.
You haven't made it clear.
Your member of Parliament,
Gentlemen, one at a time. Go on.
Your member.
You make your point, and then.
If you just give me literally 30 seconds, I want to make another point.
Yeah, go on. Just make your
point. Your member of Parliament and the constituencies they represent, they are by and large Leave constituencies. Your Labour member of Parliament, by and large, they're Remainers. You are at odds with the electorate. You're pitting Parliament against the electorate. You are going to lose this general election with this party leader who, for all intent and purposes, needs to go back to where he came from.
Let's just leave that aside.
Allotment.
Absolute nonsense.
The point you want to make in relation to 17.5 million voters have voted to leave Europe. Now, if they were to go back, what does that say about democracy?
Yeah, personally, this is what I believe. My party, which is the Labour Party, we were for Remain during the referendum. But after the referendum, when the Leave campaign won, we respected that decision and we sort of went along. And that is still our position, that we will respect that decision. But recently, Jeremy Corbyn has actually announced that if Labour forms the next government, which is very likely because of the many.
So the poll doesn't suggest that. You are on 28%. And we're on 41%.
If Jeremy Corbyn wins the next election, gentlemen, will there be a second referendum?
Yes, our leader,
that is the position of the deputy leader.
If there is a second referendum, and that says again, leave Europe, are we going to go through the same process again?
This is what Labour wants.
Basically, the Labour position is that if Labour becomes the government, then we will actually have a referendum on the deal, basically.
Thank you. Let me ask the Liberal man. What is your stance on this? Because obviously Liberals are probably scoring the brownie points in terms of Europe. And a lot of the people, both from the Tory party...
Yeah, they have become the safe haven for the rejects.
Well, they've joined the Liberal Party.
Well, with greatest respect, the deal that you have attempted to put through Parliament has been rejected 3 times. I think the rejects are elsewhere. But the Conservative position is to leave the European Union, come what may, deal or no deal, and it's looking more likely it'll be the latter.
No deal.
I'm afraid the Labour position is absolutely unbelievable. The Labour Party voted last week to have a neutral position on remaining or leaving in the European Union at the next election. This is one of the biggest issues of our time, and they're on the fence. Now, the Liberal Democrats, what we believe is that if we are elected to form a majority government after the next election, that will send a message to people that they've thought again and they want to stay in the European Union. And in that regard, we would revoke Article 50 and remain in the European Union.
That is not your position. Your position is to revoke Article 50 regardless.
Yes.
That is the motion that's been adopted. It's very crystal clear.
It's not.
Either you have trouble reading.
Yeah, this is your party policy.
No, it's not. If we form a majority government after the next election,
I think you are missing.
I think you're
separating one at a time.
Issues are very clear.
If the party becomes
what does it mean?
On day one, we will actually
Yes,
revoke
on the day
Article
one,
50.
yeah, if we win majority government, we will revoke Article 50.
And
That's
let me
the
just
policy.
answer that question, because you asked me why
So you
why
renegade
my
on
party is
people.
on the fence. We are not on the fence. We respect democracy. Okay, but that is why our party decided to respect the referendum. We didn't actually go out there and make a hoo-ha about it, basically. Yeah, we respected. We wanted to move on, and that is why we think that we will actually wait and see.
Why has it taken you so long to call for a second referendum?
You are just talking, Rohit, you are just talking about
from there, basically.
deals
and we
now.
believe that we are in a position. We haven't lied to the public like you guys have in the past. We know, like under Nick Clegg's leadership. Look what
Don't
happened.
talk about the
You went
treaties
into
again.
you went into a coalition with the Tories, the Nasser party, and look what happened. Your party got decimated in 2015. Okay, you backtracked on the very policy that you actually won many seats on, which was the free tuition. Okay,
That was
You
Labour
backtracked
policy,
on
Ruhul,
that.
but just to remind you.
And many others. So Lib Dems cannot be trusted, basically. Lib Dems have become the party of the League Dems, basically.
Well,
Lib Dem is
you
the
see
party that
people leaving
has
the
to be
Tories
trusted now
joining
with the
the
many
Lib
peoples.
Dems. You see some people leaving the Labour Party joining the League.
Well, let me put this to you. Let me put this to you.
I want to
Hang on,
address the
gentlemen,
criticism.
hang
No,
on.
I need to address the criticism.
The general
that I've just
consensus
received
out
here.
there is that the Tories cannot be trusted.
Well, I beg to differ. That's not a general
The
consensus.
Liberal cannot be trusted. The leader of the Labour Party is not fit to form a government.
That's
So
unanimous.
who is going to run this country?
No, I'm afraid I've just had a number of criticisms levelled against me.
Okay,
I need the
all right,
opportunity
all right,
to
all right.
address them.
Okay,
Okay?
go on. Respond
Right.
to them very quickly. We've only got about 2 minutes left.
No problem.
Okay.
We can reflect on the past, and the Liberal Democrats accept that some mistakes were made in government before.
So many. Not some, so many. I've got a list.
Okay, go on.
Hang
yeah,
on,
go
hang
on.
on.
Go on. Make your point because we need to go on a break. Yeah.
But we are not a party that led our country into an illegal war some years ago. One of the most disastrous decisions that were ever made.
By the Teflon Tony,
So you
absolutely.
cannot sit there on some kind of moral high horse and start dictating to people who made mistakes before and who hadn't. Now, in terms of the democracy point, we have elections so that people can vote for a party whose policies they can see enacted in government. What we are saying is we will give the British public a second chance to stay in the European Union. And if we form a majority government, if that number of people vote for us in the next election, it is only right that we act on what our manifesto promise said to revoke Article 50 on day one if we
will talk about your party's manifesto.
So essentially you just want to
after the break.
renovate on the outcome of the referendum. That's what your position is.
Personally, I think, the electorate has lost the trust and the confidence in your party, honestly. But look how many leaders you guys have had for the last 2 years. That says a lot, doesn't it? Okay. Look, I've got 10 most policies you guys have backtracked on: tuition fees, VAT, tax cut for millionaires, living standards, NHS, mansion tax, constitutional reform.
Right. We need to very quickly finish off. Yeah.
Which was
we need to go on a break. Finish off your list.
Yeah, Sure Start.
Yeah.
The police numbers, which you supported the Conservatives to cut, and special advisors. We, apart from the Iraq War, I do agree that
Thank you, Rulbai. We need to go on a break, ladies and gentlemen. We need to go on a short break. After the break, we will continue, gentlemen. Hang on. We will continue after the break.
There is no apart
Thank you.
from the Iraq War. It's humongous.